Hello, testing. Hello, can I get everyone's attention? Can everyone hear me? Is this too loud? Is the mic loud? Is that okay? People at the back, can you hear me? Raise your hands. Cool, cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Building Notion, our conversation with the Notion engineering AI lead, Sarah. Woo! So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting here today at UTS Startups. I pay my respects to elders both past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us tonight. This always was and always will be traditional custodian land. So just before we begin, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Toilets are just located right here. In an emergency, please follow the warden's instructions and exit to the TAFE just down the road. Phones on silent, but feel free to chuck this on Insta, Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever your channels are of preference. So just beginning, I am your MC tonight. My name is Jerwin. I am a Notion ambassador. I run the marketing for a cloud security firm called TrustOnCloud, where we help organizations onboard to the cloud with confidence. I'm also the co-host of the Notion in Practice podcast, little plug there, and I'm a content creator. But tonight's not about me. I'm just an MC here to elevate the voice of the Avengers here tonight. We have some really stacked lineup today. And but before we do that, I wanted to also get you the feel of the room, okay? So who here, raise your hand if you're a student. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. How about developers? Room in a while. So that's cool, that's awesome. All right, let's get into a bit of a coding question. Who here knows how to code? Put your hand up. Oh, wow, that's a nice split. Who here, put your hand up if you vibe code. Yeah, that's what I like to see, okay. Okay, cool. So before we begin, we actually have had a last minute slot come in. He's a bit of a celebrity. I think y'all would know who he is. He is the reason why we are sitting in this space as well today, providing this amazing venue. Fun fact, we launched our first Sydney community event last year at a space just down the road while this space was being built. He was the CEO of Fishburners, and now he's the Director of Entrepreneurship here at UTS. Here to address you all tonight. Please join me in welcoming Murray Herbs.
That is the nicest introduction I've ever had, and I don't deserve it. I'm going to keep this really short. I just want to say one thing. UTS Startups. We have 110 competitively selected startups above you. We've got 250 seats of incubator space upstairs. If you want to be somewhere where people like yourselves are running really, really interesting startups with loads and loads of AI and support around you, please, UTS Startups is a place for you. Otherwise, I'm just going to shut up and let you enjoy the most important part of this, which is about to start now. But thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing us to host. I hope we can host a whole lot more. Enjoy.
Thank you, Murray. All right, so this is a little bit of agenda for everybody, a little bit of a spoiler. So if you don't want spoilers, don't look at the screen. So we're going to go through this format. First, we have Mr. Tim Jeffries. I'll introduce him in a second. Just letting that simmer in my brain. Know what I'm saying? And then we've got our awesome Notion ambassadors who, well, we've got Ahnaf who's just recently come back from NYC. We've also have Alistair. Has Alistair arrived yet? Oh, whoops. Oops, just ignore that. And we also have Kat Ann, who is one of our Sydney ambassadors as well. And then obviously we have the head of engineering and AI, Sarah, in the room with us. So that's just sort of what you can expect, and you could be able to ask her questions and then network after. So here we have the Notion evolution. Who here has seen all the updates of Notion and seen it just transforming rapidly over the last year? Yeah? Get a shout? Yes, exactly. Okay. Who here is new to Notion? Just put your hand up if you started using this year. Awesome. Okay. So Tim here was one of the first ever Notion ambassadors in the world. He's also, I think, one of the top 2 or 3 ranked consultants in the world. number 2? Get confirmation on that? Okay, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, he's a very amazing person. So he's going to actually give you a little history up until now of how Notion's evolved. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Tim Jeffries.
Very much. I'll pay you later. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I have the pleasure of giving you a bit of a history lesson. I think they just picked me because I'm the oldest ambassador, so I must have been around the longest. And probably in internet years, I think I'm about 100. But I first bumped into Notion in 2018. And so we're just going to... I want to tell you the history of it, but I didn't want to just tell you all the features one by one. I figured that would be kind of boring. You can read a changelog. So what I want to do is tell you a story about some of the work that I've done with a particular client and how they've kind of evolved as Notion has evolved. But before I do that, I just want to confess to you that I'm a productivity nerd. I have been for a long time. And before Notion existed, I was one of these guys. You probably don't know. Did anyone know this one? Oh, yeah, OmniFocus. Nice. Good to see you. We'll talk to you later. But I was always on the hunt for, the tool, right? Forever looking for something that fit me perfectly. But all of these tools, they had a methodology behind them. They had a way of working that was built into the tool. And so when I bumped into Notion 1.0, it was very early. And what impressed me was not so much the product, but the sort of philosophy behind it. It was like Lego, right? It was like clay. I could just kind of mold it into whatever I wanted. And that was the bit that I really sort of fell in love with. It didn't have databases yet. It couldn't do any of the things that it can do now. But it was this idea that I'm going to be able to craft this to fit me. And I think from all the nods I'm seeing, that's something that people hold as well. And one of the amazing things about the AI features is we're getting the same thing with AI. We're getting the ability to kind of shape it for ourselves. So I started here, and I thought it was appropriate to use a timeline on brand. Founded in 2013. If you haven't read the backstory, the early story of Notion, I'm not going to try and do it justice, but it's worth reading because it was founded with a lot of promise and I broke something. And then it almost failed, had this near-death experience. They kind of almost shut shop. Ivan and Simon, I think, went to Japan and recoded, and then it was released in 2016. And so that was the kind of really early version, and there was hardly any users. It was very little until 2018 when there was a big shift and databases were released. So about that same time, the tech guy can't even press next, I started running a law firm. So this is me, the guy with not as much grey hair, a bit fresh. And I was running this law firm, and they were mostly in Dropbox, a little bit in a spreadsheet, lots of email, Google Calendar, and a bunch of paper files still. And so law firms run on details, right? Clients, the matters themselves, court appearances, documents, billing, all those things, lists and lists and lists and lists. And so databases got launched March 2018. And so it was really at that point that we realized, I sort of had this hunch, maybe we could build everything in Notion. Maybe it could go from being just a note-taking app, that I can sort of put things wherever I want, to being actually the digital operating system of the business, the whole structure of the thing. And so we went from thinking in Notion 1.0 about how can we capture information to thinking about, well, how do I organize and run the work itself? So this kind of era, which I'm going to call Notion 2.0, databases came out and you could store lists, but you could connect them to other lists, right? You have relations between them. You could roll the information up. And so for the first time, this law firm who would pull out a paper file and think, I think we've had a file for this person before, would be like, oh, hang on, you can just click their name and go to their client record, which was revolutionary. I know for us now, it's like, come on, Tim. But back then, it really completely changed people's experience. And then the features kept rolling, and we're going to kind of go through them quite quickly, but every new feature in this era was really helping us organize and run the work. The feature set grew, and the whole process just compounded. So when we started, it was really simple, but then 2019, they released formulas, and all of a sudden formulas would let us run calculations. And so instead of just knowing, oh yeah, we did these appearances, we could put some billing information in, and then for the first time, the firm would actually be able to see, oh, we made this much money, or we lost this much money, or why is this person not making any money? But that's a separate story. So formulas were really powerful. Then things like backlinks and mentions and synced blocks. Was anybody around in these early days as the tool started to evolve? Yeah? I mean, it sounds so simple when I think about it now, but can you imagine not having backlinks and mentions, right? When they first arrived on the scene, you could write a memo and you could mention, oh, we were in this appearance and it was with this client, and all of a sudden this document had a richness to it. The day before that was released, you would have had to go and search up and try and find that particular file to look at the client, but all of a sudden at the click of a button you could go and do that. And so the tool kept stacking like this. Things like the public API came on scene. It felt like an eternity before it was released. Back then people were asking about it, but the moment it came about, we were actually able to build people a digital kind of ecosystem, like a whole world that functioned as one. Beforehand, if we wanted to make our invoices in Xero, someone would have to pull up the Notion screen, see the details, pull it up in Xero, and copy and paste and make a mistake and get something wrong and bill the person the wrong amount. But when the API arrived, suddenly we could build a connection and they could push a button in Notion and it would sync through and it would appear in Xero. And so, you think about what we do so much of the time now, it really relies on those kinds of processes. We take it for granted, but 2022 was when that arrived. Then we had things like database automations and buttons. If you were around at the time of buttons, the Notion world went mad for buttons all of a sudden. But I watched users who felt kind of uncomfortable trying to navigate a database suddenly just be able to cleanly and easily click a button and have, oh, here's a new file node open, here's a new letter open. And it just became simple. I had 60-year-old lawyers finally going, oh, I know how to do this now, it's really easy. Things like database automations, suddenly the client would say, oh, this is an indictable file, and a whole bunch of new tasks would roll out. It seemed like magic at the time. And it was, I think in a lot of ways, felt like the beginnings of the tool actually starting to do some of the work with us, rather than just being the place that you go to put the work into. Forms was another great one. No longer were we copying and pasting information that we were getting time and time again, and people not quite giving us what we needed and having to go back. But you could create a form, that information landed straight in a database. Seems the simplest thing now, but it made such a difference back then. Charts arrived and gave us reporting features. All of a sudden, you could build a view of your information and come back to it, every month and see the updates. No longer were we I used to do it running the law firm, would spend half a day pulling numbers from here and there and the other place, and then I was almost put myself out of a job, All of a sudden it was just, the information was visible to us. The other thing that came along in that time, and I think this is where we started to see some of the native bringing together of the worlds, was Notion Calendar arrived. And for a law firm whose whole business really runs on showing up in court, we had this incredibly complicated, you pretty much needed a PhD to be able to understand our Google Calendar. It was all these different colors, and you still work for businesses that do this, right? And the events have got special acronyms at the beginning so you can work out, oh, that's this person's. And then we had this whole Notion world where we were managing that information and we were double handling between the two so that it could be in a calendar and so that it could be in Notion. And then Notion Calendar came along and all of a sudden we could say, hey, just show us the appearances database. And we could see it sitting right alongside team calendars and personal calendars. And all of a sudden, our world compounded that little bit more. The same happened with Notion Mail. All of a sudden, this world of pain that is email was suddenly accessible to the Notion workspace. And these days, we've got emails just sort of filing in and landing in databases right next to all of the other critical information that they need. So that was Notion 2.0, and that was the period of how do we organize and run the work. But then we had my best mate here, Nosy, land on the scene, and this really changed the landscape again. We started asking a different question. It wasn't anymore about how do we just organize it and run it, but now it was how do we collaborate? How can we delegate this work? How can the tool actually help us do the work itself? Now, it started small. Before Nosy, there was Meeting Notes. And I feel like Meeting Notes was really the first time that I was watching AI change my work life, because I used to take notes, I used to be on the phone to a client and be trying to write things down. And I've stopped doing that. I can't remember the last time I pulled out a pen and scribbled a note down, because Meeting Notes is recording the conversation, file notes, whatever it is. And so we started to have this rich context be given to us. And then Personal Agent arrived, and that completely changed the experience. There was early implementations of AI, which were helpful but not transformative. It was useful to have sort of ChatGPT inside Notion with me, but what really changed things completely was when AI could understand the workspace and learn the skills of the business, learn to follow the processes, navigate this whole structure that we'd put together. Then, of course, custom agents. Oh, I've forgotten my timeline here. Custom agents came along and then could automate those AI processes. And so now this law firm has an email comes in from legal aid to say, hey, there's a new client. It automatically triggers a process. The person gets created, the file gets created, all the data gets put on the file. Something that used to be done poorly has now become this routine process that just happens in the background without even thinking. And that brings us to today, the developer platform. And I'm very excited to hear about all the things that people are going to share tonight, but also what all of us are going to do over the coming months and years as we take advantage of this platform and see it evolve. Thank you.
Would have been embarrassing if I tripped. Thank you, Tim. Okay, so next up we have now the developer platform. We have Ahnaf, who's our Notion ambassador and solutions partner. He just recently got back from New York doing some work over there. And so please join me in welcoming Ahnaf, who's going to be presenting end-to-end work at Notion Workers, the external data sync features. So please join me in welcoming Ahnaf.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerwin. Thank you, Tim. So how is everyone? Hope everyone's not bored yet, first of all. So today I'm going to be, introduce myself first. My name is Ahnaf. I'm a Notion ambassador and solutions partner. I'm also founder of ScaleXP, which is a Notion consulting firm, almost similar to what Tim does. Bit better, I don't really know, but maybe in a few years. So coming on to my use case, I'm going to first tell you a bit more about Ben Borowski. So Ben Borowski is also a Notion ambassador and solutions partner. But otherwise, if you've been an early Notion user, you may know him as one of the pioneers of the Notion API, tools, and ecosystem, and things like that. So when the API launched a couple years ago, I think 2022, as Tim mentioned, there was obviously ways you can bring in data from outside Notion, but it wasn't the most intuitive thing, right? You always had to think of hacky ways, have automations in the middle, maybe Zapier, maybe a make.dom, something like that. And as you can see in the screenshot in the bottom, like the health metrics from his Oura Ring, for example, it was separated, it was isolated, it doesn't really do much. Notion charts didn't release at that point. It was kind of all over the place, right? And then more recently, with the launch of custom agents earlier this year, the public launch, Ben actually managed to upgrade his Oura Ring data sync via custom agents. So as you can see here, he basically managed to build a interactable chat interface, and he was able to query his custom agent to ask about his readiness scores, his sleep scores, his activity scores, so on and so forth, right? So I had the amazing idea of doing something similar, but with my ring as well. So I don't have an Oura Ring. I have the Ultrahuman ring, which is not that much different, but it doesn't have as much of a robust API as the Oura Ring. So just to tell you a bit more about Ultrahuman, the app looks really cool and everything. Like, it's very minimalistic. It's like night mode, something I dig quite highly. It gives me all the scores, in terms of how many hours of sleep I got, my movement scores, things like that, my recovery scores. But after a certain point, it kind of gets exhausting because you gotta unlock your phone, you gotta go into the app, check the scores, see how you're behaving on day to day. There is a cool little agent called Jade where you can ask in a conversational way about your insights, things like that. But as with all AI chatbots these days, like this runs on a credit system, and more importantly, there's no access to data outside the app, right? So what I thought to myself was, as a Notion consultant, since I'm already in my Notion workspace or a client's Notion workspace already on a day-to-day basis, what if I could bring all this data to Notion? So how did I go about that, right? So that's where the Notion workers and CLI come in, with the primary problem being that I'm a Windows user. So the workaround in this case would be downloading something called WSL, which for the developers in the room, you may be already familiar with. But as a TLDR, it essentially allows you to interact with the Linux environment within a Windows PowerShell terminal. So I installed WSL, and I logged in, authenticated with my Notion account, all that kind of stuff. From that point on, if you've read the Notion developer docs, not too sure how many of you have read that, but these are essentially all the commands where you can browse through, you can deploy workers, you can manage workers, you can modify them, all the kinds of stuff, right? Now, I'm not the best developer out there, so I had my close partner, Cloud Code, basically do 90% of the work of the deployment. All I had to do was log in, authenticate, point to the right page to build a database, and that was basically it. So I let Cloud do its thing. And then after it was deployed, I had to see if it was correct and published and all kinds of things like that, right? So in Notion settings, the way to check if it's got it correct is you go into the worker settings. Towards the bottom, you'll notice information on all the deployed workers. And as you can see here, there's a status that neatly shows enabled, right? So that's basically how you know the worker is deployed. Now, coming to what it looks like on the UI end in a Notion database, this is what that looks like. Just a word of note, this entire database was completely created by the workers and Cloud Code, obviously. None of the columns, the properties, the tab, the views that you see, that wasn't done manually at all. It was all done by Cloud Code and NTN workers. Now, the next question you might be asking is, these are just numbers, right? It's basically the same as the app. How does it really help me, right? That's a very good question. So data is great, but trends are even better. I would like to tell you a story of what happened when I was in New York City for 3 weeks. And this is essentially a filtered view of my data from the first week I was in New York. The first red highlight that you see, that was essentially the day I was on an 18-hour flight from Sydney to Dallas in Texas. And as you can tell by my sleep score, I was heavily sleep deprived, and this was the start of my jet lag. The second highlight that you see, that was actually the day I went to Notion HQ in Midtown Manhattan, sleep deprived with black circles around my eyes for an ambassador event. Again, as you can see, sleep scores is still low from my average of 70 to 80. But yeah, I managed to pull through. And then another day of recovery later, I went back into a slump, which is the third highlight that you see. And that was the day, in fact, where we got up at 5 a.m. in the morning in a house full where everyone else was still asleep. So yeah, that's basically why the tagline says jet lag is dangerous. And then moving on, you would think that's where the troubles end. On the way back to Sydney, I had also similar problems. So about 5 or 6 days after we came back, my wife got hit with the flu, and then I got hit with the flu. But the cool part is my Ring was actually able to proactively tell me that I've got a headache and fever coming, I've got a temp running, and you can see from the red highlight there, that's the body temperature deviation. So it's basically showing you like the range between your expected basal temperature and the current temperature, right? And I was actually quite surprised to see this because I didn't have a headache at that moment in time, but I could feel the onset coming on. And at that stage, I basically knew that I had to cancel all my meetings for the rest of the week. All right, okay, so those are a couple of examples of what I did with the data. just as a recap, this is essentially how it looks at a high level. So you've got the Ultrahuman API from the ring. You've got a couple of instructions in terms of when it runs on a daily basis for the daily sync. You've got the Notion worker itself, of course, and you've got the Notion database. From these four things, that's where we got the charts, the trends, the analytics, so on and so forth, as I described to you a couple of slides earlier. So that's basically what I did for this particular project. Now, in terms of how I could upgrade this in the future, I actually have a couple of neat ideas. So, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of if I get a temperature or if I get a fever oncoming, like what do I do the next time it happens, right? Eventually, one of my goals is to connect this to Notion Custom Agents, connect it to my Google Calendar, my Gmail, and eventually I want to get to a world where if I had, let's say, suboptimal sleep, let's say I slept less than 7 hours a night, it should be able to reach out to all the meetings, all the guests in those meetings, proactively send an apology email saying, I'm not feeling well, can we postpone or reschedule? So that by the time that I wake up, like I have a free morning, I can recover as fast as possible. I don't have to stress about, how do I show up? If I show up, looking sick or looking dead, like all those other things, right? So that's essentially my use case. And if you want to learn more, you can scan the code on the left to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to learn more about Notion Consulting, scan the code on the right. Up next is Catherine.
Thank you. Okay, hey everyone, I'm Catherine. Oh, is this not connected? Could you help me out with this one?
All right, someone, you have to dance now.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just while we have everyone, I saw people were taking photos. I will have a feedback form, and if you do it, we'll send you the slide deck, we'll send you resources, we'll send you all this. So, yeah. Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Joan and Vanessa. So, hello everyone, I'm Catherine. So, firstly, I'm a Notion ambassador here in Sydney. I also work in product, Fluent Commerce, and I'm an automations and AI specialist. So that's just a little introduction about me. So, yeah. Oh, good.
Oh, it works.
Okay, it works now. Sorry about that. So, okay, firstly, I want to start off with a question. So, let's say when you want to build something, whether it's a product or a startup or a new feature, how do you actually know what the market wants right now? So in my experience in startups and even talking to business owners, usually they use Google, they go onto tech Twitter, or they go onto Product Hunt or check their competitor websites. So this year's Product Hunt, and it's a website that shows all the releases within a time frame. So teams can spend hours piecing together information on what is wanted in the market, which is fine, but it can be pretty slow and manual. So just speaking from my experience, and by the time you're done, the market might already be shifting. So when Workers came out, I was thinking, what if this launch and market intelligence report pipeline could just run by itself? Okay, so how should we set this up? So firstly, if you're using Claude Code, it's pretty straightforward. So if I play my little video here, there's a Claude skill that's already provided by Notion. That's the external sync. So that is what I use to enable this whole workflow with Workers and the custom agent that I'll be showing later. So you take this skill, install it into Claude Code, and from there you set this up via natural language. So for me, I described what I wanted the pipeline to look like, what I wanted it to do, and then Claude just handles that implementation. So what I really needed is the API for the data to be synced into the database. So next up, so once I got the API from Product Hunt, here's how the workflow actually works. So it gives me a live pipeline that tracks hundreds of product launches, and eventually it will filter the signal and turn that into a weekly intelligence report automatically. So if you see here, within 30 minutes or every 30 minutes, the database would just populate itself. So like what Ahnaf said before, this database, the structure, the data, it was all populated by the workers and the API that I gave to Claude Code. So I was able to watch this update in real time, which is really helpful because otherwise I'd be spending way too much time populating this data into this, wasting a lot of time. So the API, the data is fetched and filtered to the AI category, and I wanted products with a vote more than 400, and I write this into the Notion database. So as you can see here, I have the product name, the votes from Product Hunt. So this is the description of the product and the topic. So eventually I filtered that to artificial intelligence. Okay, now this is the workflow which demonstrates how I actually execute this. So it's my product signal pipeline and intelligence layer all in Notion. So first up, we have the API that I took from Product Hunt and I put that into Claude Code. And then there is the trigger layer. So every 12 hours, this data is populated into the database, all enabled by workers. And then it populates itself into Notion. And after this, I take this raw data and I'm able to get my custom agent to give me a intelligence report. So I'm able to see the trends within the month, within the AI space, the market insights, daily summaries. So you don't need to do this on your own. Yeah. So how is this set up? So this report is able to track competitors, emerging categories, and the market shifts all in real time. So to do this, I set up the custom agent. So I have my trigger here. Every week, I want the report to be sent to my workspace and also notify me on my devices as well. I give it personalized instructions. So you are a market intelligence agent, which operates on top of the Product Hunt launch database. So I set this up and I connect it to my tools as well. So that'd be the workers, the pages, the Product Hunt launches. And then this gives me the Market Intelligence Weekly Report, and it saves me time from researching 20 plus releases throughout the week or the month. So as you can see here, it gives me the product index, so the 20 products analyzed, and gives me the signal strength and the category as well. Also gives the dominant signals for the week, so what all these releases mean and the market insights as well. So what is actually happening in the space when you zoom out. What else? So it also gives me the competitive threats, so what this means for the company or business that I'm working for, as well as the opportunities and partnerships that are able to come as a result of this, and the signals for your team, so what you can do going forward. So the worker is able to build a live data set of high signal product launches, and the custom agent turns this data set into market analysis, competitive threats, and opportunities for the week. So yes, all in all, the AI-powered market intelligence system enables you to ingest real-time product launches, convert them into structured strategic insights, and identify emerging trends. Thank you so much. If you want to go through this workflow or learn more about me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn and we can talk more about Notion and AI. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So let's take a little bit of a step back, and I'm going to ask you guys a question. Can I get a show of hands? Who here loves automations? Ooh, everyone loves automations. Perfect, fantastic. My man right here is an automations expert here with the Notion Ambassador team, and he's also another ambassador. What's that ambassador, Alistair?
What sort of ambassador?
A8N, right?
As well, yeah.
Right, okay, got you. Thought we were going to finish.
Didn't allowed to talk about that here.
I know. We were supposed to finish each other's sentences, but obviously didn't work out. But anyways, please join me in welcoming Alistair, who's going to be talking about CLIs.
Thanks so much. All right, question for you guys. Who here has used Google Reader? Yes! Okay, like 5 people. Who misses Google Reader? Who still wishes it exists? Okay, 3 people. This talk is for you 3 people. Everyone else, I'll give you a history lesson, so let me kind of begin with that. This was Google Reader. It started in 2005 and sadly died 8 years later. It was an RSS reader, which means that you could take RSS feeds and put them in Google Reader and read them. The internet was a little bit different then. It was 2005. We'd had the dot-com crash. Maybe the internet wasn't about making money and selling stuff. Maybe it was still about the early ideals of free information. You could get anything anywhere. And this was part of that. It was about sharing information through RSS feeds, because if you had a blog, like I did, it was called Star Rocket. I posted even worse content than I do now. You could have it on an RSS feed and people would subscribe to it and then they would get it in Google Reader. It was the inbox of the internet. A lovely concept, but it died. Does anyone want to know what killed it? Does anyone know? Want to have a guess? Come on, I'm going to wait until someone answers. Yes. Ads, yes. Ads pretty much killed it. And who did the ads? Facebook had the ads. Facebook came out around about the same time as Google Reader, and everyone loved it. There was a lot of content. There still is a lot of content. And as a result, it was a walled garden because they were making money from the content. So all of a sudden, RSS was like an old, naive idea, and instead it was about walled gardens and selling users data, which is really sad because as a result, we don't have a good feed reader anymore. And people still get annoyed by this. This is a post about someone wanting to make an RSS feed reader in Notion. People actually pay. I found a service. People are paying $20 a month to have an RSS feed reader in Notion. So with workers and the CLI, I thought, hey, maybe I can do better than that. I can make Google Reader again, and here it is. So this is Google Reader in a Notion database. What happens is you put in your feeds down at the bottom, you put in a filter of what you want to find out, and then it gets updated automatically. So it's using the sync feature of the workers, and it's also got a little bit of automation going on in the back end doing the filtering. So you can add new ones, it will backfill, and it works pretty nicely. So yeah, happy I managed to get that going. The wonderful irony here is the reason I got started on this project is I have a client, and they needed to keep track of RSS feeds. And so they asked me, like, could you come up with some kind of newsletter for it or something? So I did all that and created a tool for them. And do you know the company who they want to read the RSS feeds for? It's Meta. So Meta still announce all their stuff in RSS feeds. So even though they killed it, they're the reason why it's still alive as well. If you want to make something like this, or maybe something more relevant to you, you don't have to automate RSS feeds. I understand that's maybe a niche interest. This is how I went about it. So as you can see, it goes from the RSS feed through to Notion via AI. So it's taking 4 polls a day. It's doing the filtering with, you can put it in any AI agent. And then it creates the feed in the Notion database. It's pretty cool. There's 2 kind of syncs. You can either do like a backfill, which happens once, and then there's a delta, so it just updates. So if you are syncing a feed, you can kind of keep other data in the Notion database. I haven't found it wipes it out. because it's only updating any differences. I mean, it took me less than 60 minutes to make this, guys. So you can do the same. You just need to install the CLI, get into Claude Code, and just tell it what to do. And that's pretty much all I had to do here. It's also not that expensive to update either. So it works pretty well. And one more thing. I actually got asked to give a completely different talk to this one. So I'm now going to give the other talk that I actually got asked to talk, because I thought it was something that I even, we'll see if there's more people who are interested in this than the past one. So we'll do a show of hands. Okay, first of all, who likes CLIs? Who's used one in the past month? Okay, good. We're already looking better. Okay, so keep your hand up if you also hate the Notion API. Oh man, we got 2 people. This is for you guys. This is for you guys. Okay, we've talked a lot about the Notion CLI. If you want to make workers, if you want to do the sync, you're going to need the Notion CLI, so install it. You should do that. It's also a wrapper on the API, so you can now do stuff through the command prompt, which is great, but we already had the API. But here's the thing. Where the API sucked was creating pages with content. And that's because Notion has blocks. Don't get me wrong, I love blocks. I wouldn't be here or an ambassador if I didn't love blocks. But it's great as a UI because you can create all sorts of features. However, when you're trying to replicate that programmatically through the API, you have to then create this big JSON object. And there's all sorts of rules. I still don't know how it works. And so now, however, with the CLI, you can just give it Markdown, and then it will add the page content. So if you're making an agent now, I would recommend still use the API or an MCP if you can have that. But then to create the content, you can do it with Markdown. It's a lot easier. Happy days. So you 3 people are now really, really happy. Cool, so that's me. Thank you. I'm Alistair. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I post other things. Equally boring, but maybe you're into that. So I'm expecting 6 more subscribers. I automate stuff. I go into companies, help them become AI, just learn how to use AI and to make sure they can automate stuff and become AI first. So you can connect with me there. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Everyone can hear me? Excellent. So my name is Alex. I'm also a Notion ambassador based here in Sydney. And today we're having a, next slide. Oh, I thought someone else was doing this. This doesn't make sense. I'm sitting over there. There we go. You'll be driving. That was all part of the plan. We have Sarah, Notion's AI lead, joining us today. So Sarah, grab a seat.
Hello, Sydney. Hello. I can't believe you found that.
Yeah. So very, very warm there. I'm feeling a lot warmer. So when I was originally told that we were chatting to Sarah, we had a 20-minute slot. And I thought, gosh, a lot of questions are going to come in. How do we manage this? And then, you have timers. And then I thought, well, I wanted like a game show button or, something a bit more interactive. Then I thought, let's get a big giant hourglass, like a big novelty hourglass, and do a 2-minute drill. Every 2 minutes on the minute, let's see if we should answer questions. And we did get that, but I did get Timid a little bit. So we have a 2-minute drill, 1 question, 2 minutes to answer, and we also have a timer because this is a big crap. And if she spends 1 minute, then it just gets like really confusing, but I'll use it anyway. Sarah, you've flown all the way here. You've been in Sydney for a few days. Tell us about yourself. What is the day in the life of Notion's AI lead?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah.
In 2 minutes.
Hi, go for it. Brevity was never my top skill, so this is a game-changing environment for me. So I'm Sarah, born and raised in the Bay Area. obviously from the States. I've always worked in machine learning, although used to be what we call supervised machine learning. It was kind of big data analytics. Now I would say working in applied AI is much more of an infrastructure problem. It's a lot about permissioning. I also have never been Britney Spears before, so if this is awkward, it's working? Okay. Yeah, it's not really. I'm a nerd, so this is a big deal. And I think at Notion, a day in the life for an AI lead at Notion, I think we're constantly thinking about what it means to bring frontier capabilities to our top-of-class customers, while also making it accessible for people while it's their first foray into utilizing AI. And I think building product that handles that balance can be quite difficult. And so it's thinking about those trade-offs and then getting to talk to customers and go to events like this to kind of stay humble and make sure that we're actually building what customers want, not just what tech Twitter and your neighbors in Silicon Valley say are important, which also is critical. I could go for 53 more seconds, but there's probably other
So I'm
questions.
glad we had the timer because this would have gotten quite
cool.
confusing. So I'm going to park this here for a second.
I see. Yeah.
Thank you. So next question. So we will pass over to the audience every few questions as well. So if you have questions yourself, we'll pass over to you. Next slide. Timer broke it. So let me ask a question while we wait. Jerwin asked the audience earlier, how many of you code? What's your background? How many of you are devs? So when we look at, or when you explore the developer platform, what does that mean for non-devs? What does that mean for people in operations, people in product, people that work with more of a low-code, no-code environment?
Yeah, I think the very first thing with the developer platform, obviously our first consumers of it will be developers and technical people. I think what's powerful about it, and you saw it in some of these demos, is that I don't think that GPUs and LLMs need to solve every problem. And that's not cost efficient, it's not latency efficient, it's not context efficient. And being able to offload things to a sandbox or a CPU, right, can be super valuable for our customers. And the first versions of it, you have to code. It's kind of, as you saw, pretty easy because the CLI itself has most of the instructions of how to do it. So most coding agents can figure it out themselves. But correct, I think this first version, heads of IT, software engineers, they will be the best implementers of it. But if we're doing our job well, I would say in the next 6 months, you can also, the Notion agent has access to Claude models too, right? We should get to a place, and we've actually already started rolling out the ability for the agent to offload things to a sandbox for Cell Computer, that it spins up like a mini sandbox, right? In the sense of the word. And it's more about the power of a CLI and the power of basically having deterministic code integrated with your agent workflows. Token maxing is different than outcome maxing, right? And we're here to maximize outcomes, and sometimes code is the best way to do that, right? Think about using an LLM to recreate the same Python script to analyze a CSV every single time. Not only does that not make sense, it's also not deterministic, it's not high quality. I think the pendulum swung super far in having language models do everything because we thought it was pretty cool how good they were at it. But there's a reason why determinism is powerful in systems, that is a concept that has rigor and we think is important. And that's why we shipped it.
I think that deserves a round of applause. So next question we had from the event submission, question submission.
These are questions from you guys, actually. So
Yes, this questions from the community, from people attending, from people that submitted their questions.
And if it's your
prior.
question, just raise your hand. It's kind of cool to see who asked it.
Yeah. So one of the questions was, what is the best way to nail using the new dev CLI? How does this change how we use Notion normally?
Yeah, I mean, there's two versions of the Dev CLI. Well, there's lots of different capabilities. It has workers, it has syncs, you can manage external agents. It kind of depends on your use case. I think one thing that's really interesting is if you have another agent that your enterprise or business uses, like for instance, a customer support agent, or maybe you have an agent that's like only speaking to your local code base, or maybe you have tools in your CLI that are really for your particular enterprise. we've kind of opened up the universe of what Notion agents have access and information to. MCPs can be a little bit brittle when it comes to permission structures, capabilities, understanding. And so by having the CLI be able to navigate, that's really powerful. I think, you never press start. It's a race condition. How does it change how we use Notion normally, or the best way to nail it? I mean, for me, as a personal Notion user, and I think some of you probably aren't just using Notion for your enterprises, it's been able to expand the type of data information that I actually can blend access to. So I saw I actually have an Oura ring, and I have a webhook that takes all my sleep data and also kind of helps me understand those trends over time. And if you're using Notion well today, this concept of it being a second brain shouldn't take any work, right? It used to be you'd see these Notion girlies on TikTok, and you'd be like, oh, I want my life to be that organized. And then you'd have this blank Notion page, and you're like, how on earth am I going to constantly add every restaurant I ever went to and make sure that I have this perfect database to share, right? That's not me. I'm kind of not more of a type B person. But if you're using our product properly, it'll look at your calendar, look at your emails, look at your Oura ring, and then you just get to play around on a rainy Sunday, and it's kind of there for you. I think that's the most powerful way, at least personally, that I use it.
Yeah, I kind of gave up on cleaning my Notion up. I think once agents came in, I just asked questions. So,
I think.
Why do the hard work?
Well, and I think also we have this issue even internally with coding agents. When I see people on my team giving each other code reviews and complaining about function names, I'm kind of this is not worth our time anymore. Who's reading this except for other AI, right? And the camel case standards, is that important anymore? And I mean, some linting, of course, is important, but I think today, the information sprawl of sources of information is a little bit inevitable. But I think what's most powerful is having that system of record where if you have lots of different agents, there's a source of collaboration, whether it be agents or humans. And as long as the way that agents find information is different than humans, right? The way that, for instance, we build Notion Search for humans, positional ranking matters a lot. The number 1 search result matters more than the 10th search result, right? That's classical system recommendations. The way that we build those search results and retrieval for agents, it's much more about the top 100 being accurate and the snippets included being right so the agent can ask for more information. It's a totally different customer, a different way of structuring information. I think the most successful enterprises will be structuring their information in a way that works well for agents. Because even if humans do the same amount of work, I promise you agents will do 5x more next year, right? And so by next year, knock on cardboard, a majority of work will be done by agents. They will be the primary Notion customers. And so we structure everything so that agents can use them, agents can explore the CLI, agents can write to them, because ultimately we will be moderating work that's being done by agents.
That's a good answer. I broke my own rule though. So we're going to open up to the audience. We do have other pre-submitted questions, but I wanted to give a chance. Does anyone in the audience here today have any questions for Sarah? Anything that comes to mind?
Claire.
Go ahead, and we'll save you to next.
Hi, so I'm in the non-dev industry. I'm in operations and systems management, so I do kind of the first person that was up here does a lot of operations consulting. That's where my background is. So when you say things like agents are going to be kind of the wave of the future and what that looks like, for somebody that isn't coding the agent but only using it, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a majority of work that's done in the world is not software engineering. And I think that we saw the first wave, but software engineering is a simpler problem in a sense. Number one, it's immediately verifiable. Code compiles or doesn't. Everyone has access to mostly everything in a company. That's not true in a law firm. That's not true in operational companies. Role-based permissions are, and everything's our bag in the end of the day is kind of the joke, right? But that's real. And the work, how do you know if the process is successful, right? You can't just run a compiler and say that the code works. I think that's the hard part of work, and that's where a majority of our customers are. When I say agents are doing most of the work, think about all the glue work that you do that's not really you operating at the top of your license. So even like the examples that we heard earlier of like inbound, triaging inbound, assigning it to the right person, doing the initial research on the client, perhaps putting together like a spec or a presentation or a PDF. But imagine that you also have like a CRM that has role-based permissions. How do you configure it in a way that respects those permissions, but also uses frontier technologies? The way that I kind of describe to my team, our task as an AI team, is there's frontiers and there's gaps, and you either are defining the frontier or you're closing the gap. When it comes to capabilities, my team's not reinforcement learning a model better than Opus 4.8. If we were, we would not be Notion, we'd be a very different company, right? Our goal is to utilize frontier technologies, make it so that companies and customers don't have to choose, they don't have to lock into a vendor, and we can close the frontier capability gap as much as possible. So that when you use Notion, and if you follow me on Twitter, I'm incessant about bragging about this, we will release the model within 15 minutes of it being released to the public, because we have enough customers at scale where we can negotiate, get early access. We're partners with all of these frontier labs, and we can make sure that our customers get that early access and that frontier capability. And that's where managed agents, which we didn't talk through, but now you can actually kick off a Claude Code task, for instance, maybe not for your workflow, but from Notion. So that's closing the gap. Where are we on the frontier? Where are we defining? That's when it comes to like permissions, collaboration, cost controls, right? I think engineering organizations have a token max perspective that most industries do not. And that's where I believe that our product defines the frontier, and we define how you do that well and enterprise grade, scalably. And I think that's where most other work is struggling right now, and that's what we're trying to solve.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did we have another, or we're gonna, I get it, cool, yeah,
Yep.
cool.
I think we'll go back to the audience. We'll give them one more.
Yeah. Who has a question?
Just time it. We've got to use time it.
You kind of answered this before by talking about how it will mostly be agents kind of in the future rather than actual manual work kind of done in Notion. But as teams kind of start to shrink and lean heavier on AI more, for those who are using it themselves, how would you say Notion is going to change its direction? Are you going to lean harder on kind of natively embedded things, or kind of grow that ecosystem more and allow for users to plug in more tools?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is, like, I do think our best work is work that we do together. And I think that Notion has a bit of a disagreeable standpoint when it comes to the idea of like a solo entrepreneur, you know that phrase? Like, the next unicorn company is built by one person. I think that's a fantastic vision of where we are, but I also think it's kind of a sad one. And I think that collaboration is the beauty of where we create things. Our job is to not make it so that you can have a company of one person. It's to make it so that it's as easy as for you to collaborate with your peer and use your brains doing the hard work. So I just wanted to share that. But to your point about like native versus not, I think for us, the primary kind of wedge or area where we add customer value and expertise is on the whole no man's land. Or let me restart my answer. It will always be true that if you're coding, a harness from Claude will work best with a Claude model. And more, these frontier providers, what is the harness versus what is the model? What are they offering versus what's native? They're trying to consolidate to force you to stick with one of them, right? So there's a business that we have in offering managed versions of those agents so that if you're a startup of 4 people, you don't need to spend all of your AI spend in one company and bet on a lab. We want you to bet on a frontier, not on the lab. So that's that component, and we work really closely with our partners, and we want to integrate more of our ecosystem together because we want agents to collaborate. We want your customer support agent, right, and your Salesforce agent, or whatever your internal agent is. You still need a system of record to collaborate the same way humans do. Like if a customer support human were to pass off something to a sales engineer, they would use a Notion page, right? We believe that that's important for agents. However, to your question about like what's native, there's a whole body of work that doesn't need Opus 4.8 level intelligence or whatever's coming next. And frontier labs are constantly increasing prices and deprecating older products because their objective is to maximize reasoning and token spend. But a lot of knowledge work is fairly saturated, not to insult ourselves, but like a lot of what we do doesn't need Opus 4.8. And that's where we believe there's a huge market for us to also build expertise natively. That looks like partnering with open weight models. Primarily, those come from China today, and we serve them through domestic inference partners like Fireworks or Base 10, if you recognize those names. But also maybe reinforcement learning, our own model that does well and actually drives down that cost to our customers. Because I think the saddest place a small business of like 4 people can be is going all in and having everything in one Frontier Labs provider. All of your work is there, and the next thing you know, they deprecate the model that you could afford. Things become 40% more expensive or use 40% more tokens with the same sticker price, which is how they get you now. And next thing you know, your margins are gone. And that's not fair, I think, to businesses, especially when you don't need that capability for everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sarah, you know I love your work, but I have to keep you to time. So
Sorry.
I'll take it off your tab.
Okay.
All right, so this question will take up 1 minute by itself. For a team already using Notion for project management, what is the killer feature of the new developer mode that would allow us to build deep custom integrations with our own engineering stack more efficiently than building a standalone internal dashboard?
Was that your question? No. Oh, sorry. I thought I saw a hand raise. Good question, whoever asked that.
2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think for project management, the killer feature of your own engineering stack is definitely workers and the ability to like call on your own code or database and be able to either sync that information or execute actions. I mean, that's like plain and simple what it was built for. For project management in general, I think what's also kind of more interesting is actually kicking off having different managed agents. Like actually, imagine, like, you guys know Kanban boards? Actually, Toyota is one of our customers, which is kind of fun because they invented Kanban, and now they use Notion for it. But imagine you have a task, and you just drag it into a new status, and that triggers Claude Code to actually, like, do a spec, write it out. You drag it again into the next stage. Codex is doing a review. You drag it again, and it's making sure that the right customers have the right data protections, right? Like, the way that you do your work, integrating humans and agents together in project management is like our team entirely basically runs on software factories, which is to say that today, the way that we manage our work is someone will we have a lot of bugs that are paper cuts that will never make it on the roadmap. They're just not important enough for me to tell someone to stop what they're doing. That probably are kind of easy. The second they come through Slack, it triggers an agent that figures out the right team to send it to. It will send it to that team. That team's custom agent will get triggered because different teams have different rules and prompts and skills. That team's custom agent will then do a first pass at a task on Claude. We'll find similar customer feedback bugs if they exist, and then tag an engineer for review and have a list that the on-call engineer looks at where they just review a bunch of PRs, right? This is like value to our customers that was never done before, but it involves trust and permissioning and control in your system.
You're getting better at the timing.
Yeah, continual learning, real time.
How does the engineering team at Notion build and deliver in a fast prototyping world? You touched on it very briefly.
I touched on it, so I'll do a 1-minute version. No, I'll do it quick. So I think, we talk about like demos over memos a lot at Notion, which is to say like all of our designers, everyone is building first. But what that means is we have to be a lot more thoughtful about what we build. I think today building is cheap and the what is even more differentiating and important because ideas are the hard ingenuity. Andre Kaparthy, who I guess now works at Anthropic, used to work at OpenAI, Tesla, he's kind of been around, but he has this idea that if you could give AI today all of the information leading up to 1920, like would it come up with relativity on its own? Probably not. Right? Like the best ideas, AI isn't there yet. They're coming from us. And so we need to be much more thoughtful about the what and allow AI to help us with the how.
I really like that framing. I might use that.
Yeah, it's not mine. It's his.
I love that framing. We have another audience question. Yep. We'll have a microphone coming around.
Hello. So I work in sales at a technology store nearby, and I've been getting a lot of business owners recently who come in and they're like, I need a really powerful computer to run AI models.
You need a what?
They need a really powerful computer
Oh.
that can run AI models locally. It's entirely for their own business. And when I ask them, why spend $6,000 on a machine when you can just use like Claude or like ChatGPT or OpenAI, their answer is always privacy. So as far as my understanding goes, Notion AI uses a mix between OpenAI and Anthropic. So for small and medium scale enterprises, is there like a solution that maybe Notion can integrate open weight models that run locally on like the user's machine?
I'm hearing this a lot in Australia. You guys are really impressive
Exactly, yeah.
with how much you protect and care about your data. So I've heard this a lot from our customers. The answer today
Paranoid
is
is the probably.
no. I won't opine on the objective value of it, but I hear you, and it doesn't matter if we like it or not. It's the business, right? The answer today is no. But there's no reason that we couldn't, except for a lot of these models. Even if they were working on device, a lot of what we apply is like enterprise durability, reliability between different users. It's a technical problem if it's truly on device. But when it comes to like a local Australian hosted model, I think that is something I'm clearly taking home that I've heard a lot from you guys here. In the US, we're spoiled because our partners serve it in the US. So we don't hear this as much, and it's a very Australian request that I totally respect. So I don't have a good answer for you now other than I hear you.
That's all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hi. So I just had a quick question regarding the roadmap with the AI development space.
Yeah.
And something that I wanted to know is Notion planning to develop something like Hermes agent? Not OpenClaw, but like Hermes, where essentially it uses the knowledge base that it has on the cloud with things on my local system, and then it evolves into a more helpful agent.
Yeah. Local system access is something that if you were to go to the cafeteria in San Francisco, you would find, 6 people, you'd find 10 different opinions, okay? I think there's a lot of value to it, and there's a lot of enterprise security risk with it. And right now, we don't support it. We are supporting file systems, but they're not local. The point in which you have local file system access, you kind of enter this lethal trifecta of data egress, right? Because the more autonomous your system, the more data it has access to, and the capable the model. It's kind of like in the ability for it to send data out, like via email. You have this lethal trifecta of real severe security risk that today we haven't seen the user benefit from yet. And I think in general, like I'm noticing a lot of local usage. I think it's a point in time request, honestly. You know the meme of like a software engineer who can't close their laptop because Claude is running? Like, what year is this, right? Like, I think we've all just accepted that as something that we're all okay with. We have the internet, like we have local, like the cloud, right? And obviously Claude and OpenAI have now launched managed agents and to get rid of that problem. Local file systems operate a similar space in my mind, where they offer a lot of risk. That being said, for any user demand, we'll hill climb a problem, but we tend not to choose the ones that offer vulnerabilities to our customers first if we think that there are other solutions, right? That's the engineering answer. Most of my engineering answers 6 months ago also have not aged well. Like, we all learn over time. I'm noticing that Hermes is really popular in Australia, actually, I've noticed. So something to look at. But yeah, I think insofar as we're trying to tackle enterprise collaboration, it's a little bit scary for you to not have a permission model that works the same way. Yeah.
So jumping back into some of the other questions, the next one is, can you share any insights into how you think about model routing and weighing up quality versus costs? I know you touched on this a few questions ago.
I think there's 2 versions of it. I mean, one is that if you guys have used Notion, right, there's a model called Auto. That's like 50% of our traffic. That's what my team's job is to make sure is the right task for the job. 50% of the time, you guys are not choosing Auto. And you're not always going for Opus, right? Sometimes you're going smaller and faster. I think over time we've realized there's a market for us figuring that out for you, and there's a huge market for that. And also our users desperately want to make the quality cost trade-off for themselves. It depends on what emails you're triaging for you to decide how important it is. So we'll always offer optionality to our customers when available, because we've learned that you know better than us. When it comes to auto routing or model routing in general, I think the approach of looking at the user request and just guessing is pretty archaic and unsuccessful. I mean, how many of you have been disappointed by dynamic ChatGPT modeling, right? Please think harder, et cetera. It's 2026. We're asking for things that we didn't ask for 2 years ago, right? But I do think with things like custom agents and repeated tasks, there are a lot of really interesting technologies where we can look at the outputs and understand, if I ran this on a different model, would I do better for my customer? And that's actually a value add. We can actually tell our customers, hey, you've run this task 10 times. We, for free, ran it on this different model 5 of those times silently and saw that the outputs were exactly the same. Do you want to preview the output differences and choose the cheaper model or choose the faster model? I think that users want that control in the latency, quality, cost trade-off more than we realize. And the more we can do is inform them, but let them make that trade-off decision for themselves. Otherwise, you're bound to disappoint 2/3 of them, honestly.
Let's talk about technical challenges.
Yeah.
I know we went through some of the wins, how we make it work, how we scale it, but what were some of the technical challenges Notion faced while scaling, or probably still does?
I mean, scaling itself is always a challenge. No matter if I worked at Google, scaling was a challenge at Google, right? Scaling is a challenge at every company. I think particularly for Notion, with agents, it's a technical answer to a technical question. A lot of our key API calls were very were very write heavy, right? Observability is a very write heavy system. All of a sudden, with agents doing so many searches, the read-write balance of a lot of our systems became a little off-kilter because agents were reading far more than humans ever were a lot of pages that humans never went to, right? So that in and of itself, I think for a lot of systems is a technical challenge with agents, which is that a lot of the optimizations you make on reads versus writes are different. I think another one actually has to do with continuous editing. So it was a challenge we were already investing in for offline mode. If you think about 2 people on an airplane editing the same doc, and it's United, so the Wi-Fi sucks, when they're both working on the same doc, when they get back online in the office, you have to figure out how to manage the conflicts between them. We were already investing, this is a technology called CRDT. We were already investing into that when we launched offline mode. With agents, it became even more confusing because for very critical databases, you can imagine 10, 15 agents running at the same time making edits. The version history and attribution of those changes is itself a technical challenge. But when we structure the problem of treating agents and humans very similarly, we've actually rebuilt a lot of our core block model so that agents are our primary customer, kind of like we were talking about before, so that hopefully we don't keep having this problem. But I would say in the past 2 years, it's been probably one of the biggest technical hurdles of kind of this AI transition.
It's really interesting to see the feature that offline mode was such a huge feature. So it's so many people wanted it. And to be able to hear about peeling behind the curtain and just the architectural feat is great.
Yeah.
So this is the last question, and we might have time for one more audience one. This is a question around creating effective guardrails and practices for Notion AI in distributed teams, how to manage risks. You kind of touched on one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is where OpenClaw fails and personal agents struggle, right? Is that when you, and including Notion personal agent, right? When you allow individuals to go willy-nilly over everything, it tends to be very expensive. It tends to be hard to harness, pun not intended, and it's quite difficult to understand what value your company is getting. And with kind of collaborative models like our custom agents launch, not only are you able to add guardrails You can control what axis it can write and read from, and you can make it much more granular. But it also makes it like much more understandable for people to look at, because much like our skills, if you're actually looking at a spec, it's much easier to understand like a UI layer behind it, as well as like cost controls and credit distribution. I would say, AI understanding and interpretability is a third of the job, to make it powerful and shareable. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
You guys
Thank
are
you
the
for
nicest country, by the way. I love it here. I love meeting all of you. Thank you for hosting me.
And you're off to Melbourne soon, is that right?
Yeah, but I hear that's like a rivalry. Ish?
Yeah, I mean,
this is better, right?
How would you describe? I feel
it's
like
better here. Okay.
Sydney's prettier, so we don't really mind what Melbourne thinks. Yeah, the
Oh,
coffee
I
probably is better.
understand.
But,
Got it.
but yeah, just want to say thank you again. And because you're flying off, a selfie was on the works. So what I might do is I might head up there, and if everyone want to group together, we'll take a quick selfie.
I love that.
And then, actually, maybe Achin, the campus leader, our campus leader wants to say 1 or 2 words. Woohoo!
Of course.
Hey, some of you guys may have met me at the entrance. I'm the guy who's giving out the stickers, Achin. So, a bit of context, I'm the campus leader for Macquarie University. I study software engineering. So, this is pretty much in my field. It's my treat for me. But I'm also part of the software lead for a World Record Society as well, MQ Speed, if you guys have heard about that. But I just wanted to talk about the Campus Leader program. So the program is basically giving students, so there were a couple students pointed out earlier. So it's for the students there who are interested in representing Notion, holding workshops, kind of building a sort of connection. It gives them a head start for when they're looking for internships possibly, so you get connections with a lot of companies as well. It's like this event as well. So if you have any sort of interest in the slightest, or if you have any questions, I'm happy for you to come up to me during the networking part. Can you go to the QR code? Yeah. So feel free to just have a look at our Instagram page, so notion.sydney. We have a lot of information there, past events as well, so you can have a rough idea on what sort of events we've hosted. If you have any questions, feel free to come up. Thank you.
Photo time.
Use my long arms.
I love it.
I mean, we do have a photographer here, so I'm sure we can get a better one done, but this is part of the fun. All the ambassadors in.
Come in, everybody.
Sarah's going to look at this on the plane. Come on.
Do we want to do the gang sign?
What's the gang sign?
What's the gang sign?
For Sydney.
No, for Notion.
The Notion sign. Oh, it looked like an S. Well, I've never been indoctrinated to the gang, so.
This photo will come back to haunt you one day, no doubt. Beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if you enjoyed today, or if you didn't, please tell us why. This really helps us to make every event better, make every meetup better. You've learned a lot about Dev. If there's any other topic or any other format that you'd like to learn more about, this is the spot to tell us. It's a Notion form, of course, and at the end, when you submit the form, you'll get access to the digital hub for all the resources that we have today. We'll try to attach the photo in the next 24 hours. And there's also a link, if you're a developer, there's a link to the Slack for the Notion developers as well. So it's all in there. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I hope you're not too jet lagged. I think it's eating, mingling, fun time.
Yeah, so this is now the conclusion of the event until, I think, 8:30, but it is now networking time. So I encourage you all to speak to each other in this room, discuss what you use Notion for, because you never know who the next person you're going to talk to. You might do business with them, you might find employment, you might find your next best friend, like I have with Ambassador programs. So
If you
thank
have
you, everyone.
any blocker if you don't know what to do with your Notion, you could tilt to any of the speakers today.
Yeah.
They are the knowledge experts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
You can get up. Stretch your legs. That was a long set. Ridola. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of talked a little bit.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. We have 17 of it.